We think you should know that Imperfect Heroes podcast is a production of Little Hearts Academy USA.
You're listening to Imperfect Heroes, Insights into Parenting, the perfect podcast for imperfect parents looking to find joy in their experience of raising children in an imperfect world. And I'm your host, DJ Stutz. Welcome, heroes and heroines, and thank you for choosing to spend the next few minutes here at Imperfect Heroes. And before we get started on such a great topic, I wanted to invite you to become part of our Imperfect Heroes Insiders. What is that, you say? Well, let me tell you. This is an opportunity for you to get some extra content from some of our guests. You're going to get book reviews. You're going to get extra ideas and activities for you to do for your kids that you're not going to get anywhere else. How do you get in on this? You just go to our website. It's www.littleheartsacademyusa. You just click on Imperfect Heroes Insiders, and it's that easy. So it's free. You just register, and you're going to be able to get weekly extra content and extra things that are fun to do. It's so much fun, and we look forward to seeing you there. Now, let's get going with our topic and with our guest for today. Our guest today is Joris Gjata, and I hope I said that right, but I don't think I got it exactly right. But she comes to us from Boston. This month, we are talking about helping our children deal with changes. It can be hard on our kids, whether we're moving, whether there's a new baby, whether we're having changes within the family. Joris knows all about big changes and going through those. And so she's going to talk to us a little bit. Joris, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what you do and what you have going on?
Hi, DJ, and all the imperfect heroes and heroines listening. I'm very happy to be with you. Thank you for the invitation to join you in supporting parents in their journey and all individuals who take care of kids and are around them. They are raising the future generation. Again, I'm Joris Gjata. I'm right now talking to all of you from Newton, Massachusetts, in the greater Boston area. And part of what I do is supporting individuals who are tired and alone and overwhelmed to become more rested and to have more clarity, confidence, and at the end feel like they belong wherever they are in their life journey, especially during moments of changes and transitions. And I love to work with parents and those who take care of children, as I mentioned, because they have in hand the future of this world and the next generation. And they are the model of leadership and ways of being in the world for the younger ones. And during moments of change and transition, it is tough. It is tough for the adults and it is tough for the young ones. But the adults, being the leaders in the family, kind of need to model how to live in those moments of transition and change. And so I want to support them to do that as best as they can for the younger ones. And transition is hard, but at the same time offers a great opportunity to really move forward and gain clarity and confidence. I offer myself as a partner in that journey and also nature and art, because I believe that they do have all the qualities inside to reach out and communicate and teach the younger ones. I am a certified parenting coach. I'm a certified forest therapy guide. I'm certified in a lot of art therapy. This work as a parenting coach and as a transitions coach is very close to my heart because I get to use all my skills to support people do their inner research. Yeah. And that's the foundation for enjoying this life with Connect.
And I think too, when we talk about it, when I was teaching, I was enjoying dealing with little guys who were coming to my classroom from all over the world. I had kids who were coming from Mexico, from South America, but I also had kids that were coming from Egypt, and I had kids from France, and from England and from Russia. I had kids from Ukraine, all over. And so here they are, just little 5-year-olds, sometimes 6. And they were transitioning to not only just a new place to live, but a new style of living. And I had parents who came, and our system of education was very different. So for them to understand, how involved am I allowed to be? What are the expectations there? In some countries, you don't get involved. The teacher is the ultimate authority, I guess.
Yes.
And for me, it was like, yeah, come on, be in the class, and they're like, oh, am I allowed?
Exactly.
And then making friends was a whole new thing. When I had kids that were coming in who didn't speak the language, or they looked sometimes different. So most of the time I was teaching, most of my class was Hispanic. And so if I got a child from Egypt or from sometimes France or whatever, they might look a little different than the other kids. And they're speaking a very different language than some of the other kids. Making friends could be very difficult for them at first. And then after the pandemic, when they came in, I had one little guy from Chile that hadn't been out of his apartment in 2 years. And then he came. So social skills, the ability to join play, all of that, everything was different to him. And so I know that you have an experience of coming and having those. So your personal experience is so valuable. How can you help our parents with some of those things?
Yeah, so let me tell a little bit my story and how I came to Newton, Massachusetts, where I am. It's kind of a story of like the impossible being possible. I am from Albania originally, it's a very small country in the Mediterranean, bordering Greece, Macedonia, and then Kosovo, which has Albanians, Montenegro, and on the other side of the Italian boot, the heel. So that's where Albania is, very small country, but with great culture. And my story of journeys of transition really started when I lost my father before going to high school to brain cancer. Losing the father is a big thing. So at that moment, I felt like I had to do everything by myself. And education was the way where I could find refuge and freedom and my own power to move forward. So I went into high school. It was a boarding school I was in a dormitory with all girls, and I would go at home on the weekends. And we moved cities. From where I was born, Korça, in the southeast of Albania, we moved to the capital, Tirana. And at the same time, I also was in a dormitory with a lot of girls from all over Albania. But my focus was education. And then I was one of the graduated top 3 in my class.
Wow.
And then from there, it was a Turkish high school. And then I applied for a scholarship and got a scholarship to study in Turkey and did my undergrad in Turkey. And for me, another shift and transition there was, of course, another country. I had to be by myself. I had no family around, no connections to it. There are some similarities. At least I had learned the language during high school, but I was totally on my own. So the first 2 years were really difficult. And there is the separation, going far away from family, just calling on the weekends and trying to maintain that connection while being separate and being far away was tough. And I graduated from college in Turkey, in Ankara. I was top of my class in international relations again. And then from there, I went for my master's to London in international political economy. I got a scholarship again. And before going there, I met my husband, my future husband, which was challenging because then I didn't know what was going to happen. And then I had to go away. They are Turkish, but they were studying in the US. So for a year, we were just Skyping. I don't know if you've heard of Skype. So it was a long distance.
I do remember the Skype years, yes.
Yeah, I remember the Skype. And then they were in the US. And then I finished my master's. Again, I graduated in the top 5% of my class. it was a great experience, but also a very challenging one for me, because having moved through all these places and different cultures, I was focused on education, right? That was my place, but I wasn't at the same time acknowledging all the things that I had to leave behind and lose and separate from. And I was just going, go, 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 go. And I did have the resources, and I developed strategies, and yeah, I was strong, right? I had that narrative from my family that, yeah, I was strong, but everything catches up with you. So
does.
that was a year that was very short to adapt to a different culture in London. For the first time, I was speaking and I studied English in an English-speaking country, right? Like I've done everything in English, but outside kind of the native speakers in a way.
And that's a very different experience.
Yes. And also very short period of time. It was 1 year. There was a lot going on, a lot of adaptation that had to happen in a very short time. And so that had its own accumulation on me. But I did it, and it was good, and it was successful. And I had the energy of the new partnership that I was starting with my husband. So kind of part of it is that support. Yeah, having someone to envisage a life together, someone who understands also what it means to move through different cultures and transitions. So that was good. But then I came to the US after my education to do my PhD. And my husband also was doing more education, but we had to live together now in one apartment, right? So a lot of new learnings. And also I got into a family that has a different culture. I kind of religiously, I was from a Greek Orthodox family. And my husband, technically, even though the family is not religious, but from a country that's Muslim, the majority. And so we had a moment in that together when we're thinking of, oh, what about kids and family? So we had a moment where we sat down and thought more carefully. We're both researchers. So we wrote a book chapter together on multicultural families before having the kid. And the idea is that in a way, there's an expression in Turkish that you just make the underwear of the baby before they're born. And it's seen as useless. Like, why would you do that? They're not here yet. But it was very important for us to take that time and space to reflect on what would it mean for us to be together in a family, bringing these different cultural backgrounds and different experiences and forming a unity, right? Kind of forming that that is crucial in being a family.
Such an important point to make those decisions before the babies come, right?
Yes, exactly. But
so important.
Culturally, that's not supported, right? It's seen as, oh, let's go on and move on, and it just will happen. And from all these transitions, till I got then the baby, like we had the kid, and of course, parenting has its own learnings, like one of the biggest learnings, and in a new country, like in the US.
Yeah.
So it's like there was a lot going on. But from all of this, what I have understood that I want to offer to individuals and parents who are going through changes and transitions is the importance of acknowledging what is lost also, right? What we separated from. Because we're strong and we tend to, and in our culture, we're just pushed to just go fast and move to the next thing and to the next and to the next and gain energy, find this short-term solution that gets you farther, but it catches up with you. And when it catches up with you, like it's kind of being smart about that. It's like, do you want to have a whole snowball, big ball find you and get you under, and you'll have some time to come back on your feet, because it's a lot. That accumulation is a lot. Or do you want like a small snowball feeling in moments of change and transition? So it's important to acknowledge that you're going through changes, and any change and transition means that you've lost something. So you need to do some grieving, acknowledge that. And at the same time, you're still going to not alone, and you're going to move through it with the heirlooms, like what the strengths and learnings and values that you have from your past and from your culture.
Right.
So it's important to pause. I've been into, and I realized I've been always, and we're always in this, what I call the connection avenue. But it's to move into that connection avenue, right? We need to have those stops. We need the pauses when we refuel ourselves, right? Get gas or recharge ourselves, because those will allow us to remain in that path of connection.
Right.
And that pause, and also a U-turn. The pause is an opportunity to look inside and to see, what is this experience teaching me? What is it telling about me? So you learn about yourself, and only then can you model and translate intentionally for the younger ones that are around you.
Well, and I think too, when you come into a new environment, and it may be across the world, or it may be just going to a new community across the state. It doesn't have to be so big, but yet there are still changes that will occur. And so I think it's important to take, to evaluate what it is that are the important things that you want to keep with you. But it's also important to look at, what are the things then that I need to do to become a part of this community, the new community. So what are the things that we need to make sure that we are holding on to? You mentioned those values. And then the history, your family history, the stories. And then how do I work that with the little ones that you were talking about?
Yeah, when you were far away, or far separated also, the communication, like even the digital communication that's not in person, is even more challenging, and it's even more tricky. But at the same time, being the separation also has its own advantages, because you can choose how to use the time and space when you connect, let's say, with a grandparent who is across the ocean somewhere else, or in another state, right? So you start the connection and the conversation, you model. Again, modeling is the number one way of teaching. It's not through words, it's through embodiment and how you communicate with your own parents. So that's why it's important to kind of do the U-turn and go back to you and see. So I'm talking to my mother. Am I triggered? Do I have tension inside in this conversation because of a pattern of communication that's different, and maybe it's not working for me? How is that? And then how am I translating that? What am I doing with that? And that's the number one for all parents, because you set the tone. When your kid senses that there is tension in here and there you are uncomfortable and something is going on, then they will not be available, relaxed enough to have this connection. So that's number one. Number one, do your turn, U-turn, and pause and check what do you have available in this moment of connection. The second part, it needs a little bit of planning and work, and it's important to see that as work, because it is hard work on two fronts, and it's okay if it doesn't work. So kind of embracing that imperfection is important. I would say frequency is also very important. How many times, let's say, if you plan to do it once a week, setting aside that time intentionally to create a focus, like a space that doesn't have other demands, right? It's not that you're cooking and at the same time you're talking to your parents and you're kind of supporting your kid to talk to them, or like waiting for them to do that. It won't happen. So it needs that concentration and being very intentional that this is time to connect and nurture this relationship that I have with a loved one, maybe a grandparent, like an aunt or an uncle, or a friend that's very dear to the family. And another way, like when those people are not available, because communication and relationship is a two-way thing. You can do your part, but at the same time, you provide space for the other person to be on their own journey and to have their own patterns. You cannot control others' ways of thinking or communicating, and you're not responsible for fixing them. So that's important to keep in mind. So in that instance that maybe that connection is not what you wished for, just remembering that there are other ways to connect and feel that
Right.
belonging.
Right.
And one that's very important for me, especially as an immigrant from a different culture, is nature, because that's the constant everywhere I go. Yeah, I can see the same moon if I am in Albania, and if
Right.
I am in London, or if I am in Australia, right? Like the moon is the same. And so kind of highlighting a constant in your life, and also acknowledging that we're all on the same earth. or like we're still
Yeah.
connected through mycelium, fungi, all the root system, the circulation of nutrients, right?
Right.
So we're part of that, and we are nature. So realizing that you have a community as part of nature, and you can kind of reach out for to feel that connection and unity through something that there is in common. And yeah, everything is not the same, but the material basis is the same, right?
Well, and
That's
isn't that
really
kind of
great.
cool though? That things are not the same, so that when you do have a chance to go visit Albania and to have a different experience, it's kind of cool. Or, and there was this song back, and I don't even know if it was a Disney movie, whatever, but there was a song somewhere out there beneath the same blue sky, and it talked about how I can look up at the moon and know that when you look up, you see the same moon.
Yes.
I have to
Yeah.
look up that song. But there are supportive things like that. And another thing, when you were mentioning those calls, I think one thing that you could do is send a text or email or something ahead of time and saying, Johnny is having a spelling test today, or he had a soccer game today, or whenever. And you can ask him about, these are some things you can ask the grandchild about. He'll be excited to talk to you about those things.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. It's true. And the same way that something that you can do with your own kids when you go and visit, because sometimes you move, like hopefully once a year you can go and visit someone who's far away, and those are kind of new moments in a kid's life, right? It's a moment of change, so you anchor in what is the same. It's like, what have you been doing and have you shared till now, till that moment? And that is the ground on which you continue to build that relationship, but at the same time just preparing them for differences, right? So we're going to go to grandma's, the bed is different. This is the blanket is, maybe some blankets are different. The trees may have no leaves. In our back home, they are green and lush. But what is the same? So what is the same? And at the same time, how would you feel when you encounter that difference? Right? So this great parenting expert and psychotherapist, Dr. Beck, is called this emotional vaccination in a way. And it works for adults too. In a way, it's like when you think about what would be the emotions that you will encounter in a future time somewhere else, you have removed an element of surprise from that experience, so that when that happens, kind of you're more prepared, right? When you're feeling sad or frustrated that something is not the same as it's in your home, you have rehearsed that beforehand. And so the impact of that, it can be kind of less overwhelming for the kids, right?
Yeah.
So that's also a practice that I try to do with my own kid when we go somewhere new, or when we expect some changes to happen in the future, for the holidays, for example, or for their birthday, right? If we set expectations for, like, okay, what are the top 3 birthday gifts that you'd like to have? And then they can list them. They don't know which one will be, but we do this thought experiments. Like, what if it's this one? How would you feel?
Yeah.
So that when that actually happens, we have processed some of that emotional experience, because a lot of feelings and emotions, they come at the same time, right? And it helps when you can separate them, right? And when you can know that you're still got it. You can feel angry, but anger is not going to overwhelm you.
That's
because
right.
anger with an element of surprise, and for kids developmentally, we learn how to process. It's like, what do you do when you're angry? Or like, you can be overwhelmed, or you can just say, oh, I am angry and I expected this to happen. Like, so
Yeah.
I'm not surprised by it.
Yeah.
And also with that thought experiment helps us think of possible things to do or ways to be. So when I'm angry, what could we do? And they can come up with their own creative alternatives and choices that they own. And that's very important, like to feel that you have the power and are trusted to have some independence in
Right.
how you deal with situations, and build confidence. And also it builds that resilience, being able to go through frustration and to stay with it and move past and know that you can do that.
You bring up a lot of ideas and things in my head rushing around, And so a lot of times when kids come into a new situation, sometimes they're maybe a little shy to reach out and make new friends. Sometimes the systems or the things that they did in the past in another culture or whatever that worked for them to make friends may not work in the new culture. Yeah. And I've had that happen with my son, who's now an adult and doing well, has a family of his own, but and we didn't even move. They just built a new school that he had to go to.
No, of course.
Right? Yeah. And so he'd always been like a favorite of the teachers and gotten along, and he had a funny personality, and his teachers always liked, how he could make people laugh and stuff. And they built this new school, and he had to go to this new school. And he had a different teacher who did not like that. He would help a girl with a coat on or open a door, and she just demeaned him all the time. And so everything that had worked for him before suddenly did not work for him. And so you can have that, whether it's just a new school or whether you've moved to a different culture where things that have worked for you before did not work for you now. What are some strategies then that you might help a child or a family that is trying to connect and become part of a community, but they're not quite sure how?
Yeah.
How do they make that transition work?
Yeah, it is a tough one because it is a process. So DJ, that's one of the most challenging parts of being a human is being okay with the passing of time and kind of partnering with time in things to emerge. Definitely, there are strategies to support that process, to support the kid in that process. For me, that would be the focus. The focus is to support and be by the kid's side as they go through a hard time. Yeah. With the message being that it is not about you, it is not your fault. There is nothing wrong with you. Because, adults are also learning how to take responsibility for their own feelings and how to communicate in a way that's supportive of someone else's way of being and uniqueness, right? And we all have our own uniqueness. And it's tough to have time and space for the interesting joke that you're not used to, right? Without blaming indirectly the kid. So that would be kind of my focus. For parents, it is especially in those moments that they need to be the greatest supporter for their kids. And it's again especially for parents who are far away from the kids. Like this is for middle schoolers, you're close, the kid comes to your home. But when your kid goes to university, right, to college, and it's far away, and as a parent, like there's not a lot you can do. And even if you did something, you're in a different culture. So it's like the context is very different. Your learnings are very different. The main power that you have is to trust that they are able to go through the hardship. It is hard. Recognize that is hard, but to trust that they can go through the hardship and that it's not their fault.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Without blaming them or without trying to fix it for them. Just being by their side, reminding them that they will always love them. They do not judge them. They will always love them. They will always be there. They will always support them. And they cheer them for the way they are and their uniqueness and their beauty and how they come and bloom into the world. because the fit in, it will always be an adjustment to something that happens outside. That's a challenging part of my journey, is like, how do you belong and you feel you belong when you're constantly on the move and when things always change and are in transition, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And so for the to belong, it means to believe in their own goodness and and respect who they are and their uniqueness, their body, right? To be aware of what's going on and embrace that, right? The doing part is not for the kid. Also, it's like, oh, you need to change this to fit in, but that's not fair, right? That doesn't make sense. Because what helps is that sense of, I have unconditional love and support, and I'm valued and worthy the way I am. And I am growing and learning, right? But the learning doesn't have to mean that I have to be someone else. Doesn't have to mean that I am wrong and I'm fixing something that's wrong with me. And in a world where judgment exists and all those labels exist, it's tough. But that's the work. That's the work that we need to do more consciously. Kids will do that. I mean, so the adjustment will happen, because kids are the ultimate observer. They feel what works. This is not working, I'll try something else, and they will experiment and they will do that. For us, it's important to let it be, because that's how we learn. We try strategies, make mistakes, and go through it and have our learning. So let that learning happen, which is natural to all kids, because they're trying to survive in a world where they do not have the power, right? The teacher has the power, the parent has the power. So let that happen. But at the same time, by giving the message that, supporting them, which is giving the message that they know what to do, we trust their process, and this is not about something being wrong with them.
Right.
So learning is, they are aware of what's going on. It's important to be aware of, oh, this is working for DJ, right? And this is not working for DJ. And because DJ tried this one with this teacher and no result. But this worked. Okay, this worked this time. I'll try 3 more times and see. And maybe it won't work. But that process will happen for sure. But it's important that DJ knows that what she's doing is good. It's learning. That's learning, right? It's feedback, communication in the way, experimenting, and that's okay. And she can do that and trust herself in the process and learn things. But it's not that she's fixing herself, right? Because she's doing something wrong.
She's just watching and observing and then seeing, oh, this is different. This is the same, but I'm okay with who I am.
Yeah. Right. And also parents, I mean, that's the role of the parents. So being by their side with unconditional support.
Absolutely.
And then, like, this has to be said, right? Like, it has to be expressed in different forums, because especially developmentally as kids, our own way of thinking is self-blame. So that's the automatic thing that happens. If something happens, it's like, it's my fault. So we learn about that as parents when we learn about that automatic thing. So we work on balancing that voice, or offering an alternative as like, this is how I see you. It's not your fault. It's not about blaming. It's about understanding what's going on. And it's a process of learning. So
you've got it. So good. So Joris, tell our listeners, our watchers, how can they contact you and get more information on you, your books, some of the things that you've done?
Yes, so the main place to go is my website, jorisgjata.com, and jorisgjata.com. And they'll find a lot about my practice. They can email me at plantywithin@gmail.com, because that's my practice's name, Plantywithin, Partners in Belonging.
I love that name.
Yeah, and also on my website, they can just sign up for getting more news about future groups that I plan to have, or events, and blog posts. I'm writing a lot of postings on different topics about individuals going through changes and transition, and how it impacts their relationships. And yeah, you can follow me on Instagram and Plenty Within again. And yeah, personally also Joris Gjata. That's it. Did you start?
Absolutely. Wow. And definitely worth following on Instagram. So Plenty Within. And I just love the thought of that you have what it takes within you. You just need to develop it and recognize it, find it, and then use it, right? I love that. I love that. So, Joris, thank you so much for being here and being a part of it. You know, everybody, if you like what you heard today, be sure to follow us and to leave a comment, leave a rating. I love hearing from my people. And if you have any questions, be sure and leave a question. You can leave it on our Facebook page, Imperfect Heroes Podcast. You can leave it on our Instagram, again, Imperfect Heroes. And you can always watch what we are doing on YouTube and Rumble. And we love hearing from you. So everyone, until next week, let's find joy in parenting. See you later, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, DJ.